How much farther?
3 days to Fort Richardson.
A woman lies dying inside the belly of a dead horse. Her skin is blue. Her breath comes in shallow gasps. Around her, the frozen plains of Texas stretch endlessly in every direction, littered with corpses of soldiers and animals alike. She has been poisoned, not by an enemy's hand, but by water, crystal clear water that looked like salvation, but carried death in every drop. Somewhere out there, a Comanche warrior watches. His people have been slaughtered by her husband's regiment. His wife and son lie in unmarked graves, killed by men wearing the same blue uniform as the frozen corpse beside her. Every instinct tells him to walk away. Let her die. It would be justice. But he doesn't walk away. This is the story of Eleanor Mercer and the man called Coda, a story of poison and medicine, hatred and love, and the brutal winter of 1874 that nearly destroyed them both. Texas Panhandle, November 1874. The wagon train moved slowly across the endless brown grass, two wooden vehicles creaking and groaning under the weight of supplies and hope. Captain Jonathan Mercer rode at the front, his blue cavalry uniform dusty but still bearing the proud insignia of the 4th Cavalry Regiment, the same regiment that had crushed the Comanche at Palo Duro Canyon just 2 months before. Inside the lead wagon, his wife Eleanor pressed a handkerchief to her nose, trying to filter out the dust that seemed to penetrate everything. She was 26 years old, a bookbinder's daughter from Brooklyn who had fallen in love with a handsome young officer at a charity ball 3 years ago. That love had brought her from the cobblestone streets of New York to this godforsaken wilderness. How much farther, she called out to her husband. 3 days to Fort Richardson, Jonathan replied. Perhaps 4 if the weather holds. The weather. Eleanor glanced at the sky, impossibly blue, not a cloud in sight. The morning had been warm, almost pleasant, around 70 degrees. Some of the soldiers had removed their wool jackets, rolling up their sleeves to enjoy what felt like an unexpected gift from nature. But Sergeant Morrison, a grizzled veteran of 20 years on the frontier, kept looking north with worried eyes. "Don't like this quiet," he muttered to no one in particular. "Air's too still. And them antelope been running south all morning." No one paid him any attention. By midday, the water situation had become critical. Their canteens had been empty since yesterday morning. 12 people, 8 horses, and not a drop to drink. When Private Jenkins spotted the pool of water shimmering ahead, a cheer went up from the exhausted men. The pool was perhaps 30 feet across the water, so clear you could see the sandy bottom. It looked like a miracle. Jonathan held up his hand. "Wait. Let me check it first." But the men were too thirsty, too desperate. 2 of them had already dismounted and were running toward the water's edge. The horses, mad with thirst, pulled against their leads and charged forward. Jonathan reached the pool and knelt beside it. He cupped some water in his palm and sniffed. No smell. He touched his tongue to it, slightly bitter with a chalky aftertaste, but nothing that screamed danger. Then he noticed the bones. 20 feet from the water's edge, the skeleton of a horse lay bleaching in the sun. Beyond it, the bloated carcass of a pronghorn antelope, dead perhaps 2 days. And scattered around the pool's perimeter, smaller bones, rabbits, prairie dogs, birds. "Get back!" Jonathan shouted. "Everyone get back from the water." Too late. The soldiers had already drunk deeply. The horses had plunged their muzzles into the pool and were gulping greedily. Eleanor had climbed down from the wagon, her throat burning with thirst. Jonathan saw her approaching and ran to intercept her. "Don't drink it," he said. "Something's wrong with Jonathan. I can barely speak. My tongue feels like leather." He looked at the water, then at the bones, then at his wife's cracked lips and sunken eyes. She was already showing signs of severe dehydration. "Maybe a small amount," he said, finally, his judgment clouded by desperation. "Just a little. To keep your strength up." He filled a canteen and handed it to her. Eleanor drank not a small amount, but deep, desperate gulps that sent the cool liquid flooding into her empty stomach. She had no way of knowing that she had just swallowed her death sentence. The sickness began that night. Private Jenkins was the first. He woke screaming, clutching his stomach as violent cramps seized his intestines. Then came the vomiting, wave after wave of it, followed by diarrhea so severe that he couldn't stand. By dawn, 3 soldiers were in the same condition. Their bodies were expelling water faster than they had consumed it. The very thing that was supposed to save them was killing them instead. Eleanor felt the first cramp around sunrise. She tried to hide it from Jonathan, but within hours she too was doubled over in agony. Jonathan's face went white. No. No, no, no. What was in that water? Eleanor gasped between spasms. Alkali, Sergeant Morrison said grimly. He hadn't drunk from the pool. Some instinct born of decades on the plains had held him back. Gypsum and mineral salts. When the drought concentrates them, the water turns to poison. Looks clean as mountain spring, but it'll kill you deader than a rattlesnake bite. Is there a cure? Morrison shook his head slowly. Need clean water to flush it out. Lots of it. And we ain't got none. The old sergeant looked north again. That strange stillness in the air had grown heavier. And now on the horizon, something was forming a thin line of clouds so dark they were almost purple. Captain Morrison said, his voice tight, "We got a bigger problem coming." The blue norther arrived like the wrath of God. One moment the temperature was a comfortable 68 degrees. Soldiers were wiping sweat from their brows, cursing the heat even as they dealt with the poisoning crisis. Then the wall hit. It came from the north, a solid mass of blue-black clouds stretching from horizon to horizon, rolling toward them with terrifying speed. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in the first minute, then 10 more, then 10 more. Within an hour, the thermometer had plunged from 68 degrees to below zero. The soldiers dressed in light wool for the warm morning had no chance to prepare. The sweat on their bodies froze instantly, dropping their core temperatures with shocking speed. Private Harrison, who had been running to secure the horses, found his damp jacket freezing solid around him, trapping him in a shell of ice. "Help me," he screamed. "I can't move. Help." Sergeant Morrison tried to cut him free, but the fabric had bonded to his skin. Pulling it away would tear the flesh with it. The wind hit next 80 miles per hour, howling across the open plains with nothing to stop it. The sound was like 1,000 screaming voices so loud that men standing next to each other couldn't hear their own shouts. Then came the hail mixed with sleet and ice crystals that cut exposed skin like tiny razors. And through it all, the bizarre phenomenon that made Blue Norther's legendary static electricity so powerful that blue sparks leaped from metal objects, from horse manes, from the soldiers' own fingertips. In the darkness of the storm, these ghostly lights flickered everywhere, adding a supernatural horror to the natural catastrophe. Jonathan struggled toward the wagon where Eleanor lay. She was curled in a ball, shivering violently, her body fighting two battles simultaneously: hypothermia from the cold and dehydration from the alkali poisoning. Each was deadly on its own. Together they were a death sentence. "We need to get you warm," Jonathan said, his teeth chattering so hard he could barely speak. He pulled every blanket in the wagon over her, then climbed in beside her, wrapping his arms around her trembling body. But he had given her most of the blankets, keeping only a thin layer for himself. The cold sank into his bones. Through the canvas cover they could hear the screams of men and horses, the crack of ice forming on everything, the endless shriek of the wind. By morning the storm had passed. Jonathan was dead. Eleanor didn't know it yet. She had slipped into fevered unconsciousness sometime during the night, her body burning with infection even as the cold tried to kill her. Sergeant Morrison found them at dawn, Jonathan frozen solid beside his wife, his arms still wrapped around her in a final embrace. His face was peaceful. He had died protecting the woman he loved. Morrison checked Eleanor's pulse, weak and thready but present. He looked around at the devastation. Of the 12 people who had started this journey, only 4 soldiers remained alive, and all of them were in bad shape. Half the horses were dead. They had no supplies, no medicine, and no way to save the unconscious woman in the wagon. Morrison made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "We head east," he told the survivors. "Trading post is 2 days that direction. It's our only chance." "What about the captain's wife?" Morrison looked at Eleanor, pale as death, barely breathing, lying next to her frozen husband. "She's gone," he said. "Even if she wakes up, the alkali poisoning will kill her within hours. We can't carry her. We can barely carry ourselves. We're just going to leave her. If we stay, we all die. If we go, maybe some of us make it." He turned away. "God forgive me, there ain't no other choice." But Morrison did one thing before leaving. He remembered the old trapper's trick, the one that sometimes saved men caught in deadly cold. He dragged Eleanor from the wagon, cut open the belly of the least damaged horse carcass, removed the steaming organs, and placed her inside the body cavity. The horse's residual warmth would keep her alive for a few more hours, maybe long enough for a miracle. Morrison didn't believe in miracles, but he figured he owed her the chance. Then he led the survivors east, leaving Eleanor Mercer alone in a field of corpses, hidden inside a dead horse, waiting for a death that seemed certain. Coda saw the buzzards first. They were circling perhaps a mile to the south, not landing yet, just wheeling in patient spirals, waiting for the last warmth to leave the bodies below. He had been traveling alone for 3 days now, moving south from the killing fields of Palo Duro Canyon. The memories were too fresh. 1,000 horses screaming as the bullets tore through them, the smoke of burning lodges, the desperate flight through the canyon walls while soldiers fired from above. His people were broken. The survivors were being herded toward the reservation in Oklahoma, a foreign land where they would be forbidden to ride, to hunt, to speak their own language, where they would become farmers and beggars on their own stolen land. Coda couldn't face that. Not yet. He needed time alone, time to decide whether life was still worth living. He was 35 years old for a warrior who had been fighting since childhood. His wife Nahimana and their 4-year-old son had been killed 2 years ago when soldiers raided their village. He had no family left, no purpose, no reason to continue except the stubborn refusal to let his enemies have the satisfaction of his death. Now approaching the buzzards, he saw what remained of the wagon train. Bodies of soldiers in blue uniforms, dead horses, scattered equipment, the aftermath of the Blue Norther, which he had survived by sheltering in a narrow canyon and wrapping himself in buffalo hide. Coda dismounted and walked among the corpses, his face expressionless. These were his enemies, the men who had destroyed his people. He should feel satisfaction at their deaths. Instead, he felt nothing but weariness. Then he noticed one of the horse carcasses was different. Its belly had been cut open deliberately, and something was moving inside. He approached cautiously, his bow ready. What he found made him stop cold. A woman. White, unconscious. Her face was gray, her lips cracked and blue, but he could see the faint rise and fall of her chest. Alive. Coda stood there for a long moment, staring down at her. Nearby, he could see the frozen corpse of a soldier, an officer, judging by the uniform. The insignia on his chest was familiar: 4th Cavalry Regiment, Mackenzie's men. The regiment that had killed his horses. The regiment that had burned his village. The regiment that had participated in the raid that killed his wife and son. This woman was the wife of his enemy. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away, leave her to die. She was nothing to him, less than nothing. Her people had taken everything from him. But Coda didn't move. He kept staring at her face, the pale skin, the closed eyes, the slight furrow of pain between her brows even in unconsciousness. She reminded him of something. Someone. Nahimana had looked like this in her final moments. Pale. Still. Waiting for death. He hadn't been there to save his wife. He had returned from hunting to find her body already cold. Could he walk away from another dying woman even if she was his enemy? Coda knelt beside the horse carcass and touched the woman's face. Her skin was clammy, alternating between fever-hot and ice-cold. He sniffed her breath and caught the telltale bitter scent. Alkali poisoning. He had seen it before. White soldiers dying beside crystal-clear waterholes, their bodies betrayed by water that looked like salvation. If he did nothing, she would die within hours. The poison was already destroying her from the inside. But Coda knew things that white doctors didn't. Knowledge passed down through generations, paid for with the blood and suffering of ancestors who had learned to survive in this unforgiving land. He made his decision. "I don't save you because you deserve it," he said quietly in Comanche. "I save you because I refuse to become what they want me to be." He lifted her from the horse's belly, wrapped her in his buffalo hide, and placed her across his horse's back. Then he rode north toward a hidden canyon where a spring of clean water flowed, a spring that only his people knew about. Behind him, the buzzards descended on the remaining corpses. The canyon was invisible until you were almost inside it. A narrow crack in the rock wall led to a protected valley, perhaps a quarter-mile wide, sheltered from the wind by towering cliffs on all sides. A spring bubbled up from the rocks at one end, feeding a small stream that disappeared into the earth at the other. Cottonwood and willow trees grew along the stream, a sure sign of clean water. No salt grass, no alkali deposits, no bones of poisoned animals. Coda had used this place many times. It was one of the secrets that allowed his people to survive in territory that white men considered uninhabitable. He carried Eleanor into a small cave at the base of the cliff and laid her on a bed of dried grass. Then he built a fire, small, almost smokeless, using techniques perfected over centuries. The woman was dying. He could see it in her color, her breathing, her complete lack of response to stimuli. The alkali had ravaged her digestive system and her body was expelling fluids faster than it could absorb them. White doctors would have no idea how to treat this. Their medicine relied on pills and potions from factories far away, useless in the wilderness. But Coda knew where to find medicine. He left the cave and walked along the stream bank, his eyes scanning the vegetation with practiced precision. There, a mesquite tree, its gnarled branches reaching toward the winter sky. He drew his knife and carefully peeled away the outer bark, exposing the pale inner layer beneath. Mesquite bark was rich in tannins, the astringent compounds that could tighten and seal damaged tissues. When the intestines were inflamed and leaking, fluid tannins could constrict them, slowing the deadly diarrhea that was draining the life from Eleanor's body. He gathered a handful of the inner bark, then continued searching. Near a rocky outcrop, he found what he was looking for, a low shrub bearing clusters of small red berries. Skunk bush, sumac. White people avoided it, mistaking it for its poisonous cousin. But these berries were intensely sour, packed with natural acids that could neutralize the alkaline poisons, still burning Eleanor's stomach. Coda returned to the cave with his harvest. He sat beside the dying woman and began the process of preparing the medicine. First, he placed a piece of mesquite bark in his mouth and began to chew. Not quickly, slowly, methodically, allowing his saliva to mix with the fibers and begin extracting the tannins. The healing process started in the mouth, where enzymes in saliva activated the bark's medicinal properties. His grandmother had taught him this. She had been one of the greatest healers of their band, a woman who could cure fevers, set bones, and bring people back from the edge of death using nothing but plants and knowledge. The soldiers had killed her at Palo Duro Canyon, shot her through the chest as she tried to flee with the children. Coda chewed until the bark became a soft paste. Then he added crushed sumac berries and a small amount of clean water from the spring, mixing everything into a thick slurry the consistency of mud. This was important. The medicine couldn't be liquid. Liquid would flow straight through the damaged intestines without effect. It needed to be thick enough to coat the stomach walls, forming a protective layer that would both heal and shield. He lifted Eleanor's head and pried her mouth open. Her eyes remained closed, but she made a weak sound of protest. "Swallow," he commanded in English. "Medicine. Swallow." He placed a small amount of the mixture on her tongue. She gagged at the combined taste of bitterness and sourness, trying to spit it out. Coda held her mouth closed. "Swallow." She swallowed. He waited 15 minutes, letting the first dose begin its work. Then he repeated the process, and repeated it again. Every quarter hour through the night, he fed her the medicine, patient as stone. The fever broke near dawn. Coda was sitting against the cave wall, fighting to stay awake after a night without sleep, when he noticed the change in Eleanor's breathing. It had shifted from shallow and rapid to deeper, more regular. The gray pallor of her skin had warmed slightly. He checked her pulse. Stronger. The intervals between her bouts of diarrhea had lengthened. She was going to live. Coda didn't feel relief or satisfaction. He felt only the exhaustion of a man who had spent the night fighting death on behalf of someone who, by all rights, should have been his enemy. He built up the fire and prepared more medicine. She would need several more days of treatment before she was strong enough to survive without it. As the sun rose higher and light filtered into the cave, Eleanor Mercer opened her eyes for the first time in 3 days. She saw stone walls, firelight, the smell of smoke and herbs, and sitting across from her, watching with dark, unreadable eyes, a man with long black hair and copper skin. She screamed, or tried to scream. What came out was a hoarse croak, her throat too damaged for real sound. She tried to crawl backward, but her body refused to cooperate. "Don't. Please don't hurt me." Coda didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply watched her panic exhaust itself. When she finally lay still, breathing hard, he picked up a wooden bowl containing dark liquid and placed it beside her. "Medicine," he said. "Drink. My husband." Eleanor's voice cracked. "Jonathan, where is he? Dead? Before I came, cold killed him." Eleanor closed her eyes. Tears leaked from beneath her lids, the first tears she had shed since the ordeal began. Her body finally hydrated enough to cry. Coda let her weep. He didn't offer comfort. He simply waited. When her sobs subsided, he pointed at the bowl again. "Drink medicine first, then cry more." 3 days passed. Eleanor's body slowly healed under Coda's care. The cramps faded. The diarrhea stopped. She graduated from the bitter medicine to small amounts of clean water, then to thin broth made from rabbit meat. She didn't trust him. Every time he moved, she flinched. Every time he came close to administer medicine or check her condition, she tensed as if expecting a blow. He ignored her fear. He had no interest in reassuring her, no patience for the prejudices she had absorbed from her people. He simply did what needed to be done and left her alone. On the third night, she finally spoke more than a few words. "Why did you save me?" Coda was sitting by the fire, carving something from a piece of wood. He didn't look up. "Why?" she repeated. "Your husband's regiment," he said slowly, his English rough but comprehensible. "4th Cavalry. Mackenzie's men. Yes. 2 years ago, they attacked my village, killed my wife, killed my son. He was 4 winters old." Eleanor felt the blood drain from her face. I didn't know. 2 months ago, Palo Duro Canyon. They killed our horses. 1,000 horses. Burned our lodges. Destroyed our food for winter." He finally looked at her. "Your husband's regiment. Then why save me? You should hate me." Coda was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. "I do hate, but not you," he returned to his carving. "You did not kill my family. You did not shoot my horses. You are just woman who drank bad water. That's all, and..." He paused, seeming to search for words. "I am tired of death. I see too much death. I don't want to see more. Even death of enemy." Eleanor studied his face, the hard lines, the deep-set eyes, the expression that revealed nothing. She tried to reconcile this man with the savages she had been taught to fear. "The water," she said. "How did you know it was poison? How did you know how to cure me?" Something that might have been a smile flickered across Coda's face. "Your soldiers die beside clean-looking water. My people walk same land and never die. Why you think I don't know?" "Because we know. We learn from land, from animals, from ancestors. We know which water kills, which water heals. We know which plants cure sickness, which plants bring death." He held up the wooden bowl. "This medicine, mesquite bark and sumac berry. Your doctors never hear of it. But my grandmother teach me. Her grandmother teach her. Knowledge older than your country." Eleanor reached out and took the bowl. The liquid inside was dark and smelled bitter. She had been drinking it for 3 days, hating the taste but unable to deny that it was working. "What's in it?" "Exactly," Coda explained. "The tannins in mesquite bark that tighten damaged tissues, the natural acids in sumac berries that neutralize the alkaline poison." He explained how chewing the bark activated its properties, how the thick consistency allowed it to coat the stomach walls. Eleanor listened with growing amazement. This wasn't superstition or magic. This was medicine, sophisticated, practical, based on generations of observation and experimentation. "Why don't more people know about this?" she asked. Coda's expression hardened. "Because your people call us savage. They think we know nothing. They put us in reservations and forbid our ways. They kill our healers and burn our medicine bundles." He stared into the fire. "They would rather watch their own soldiers die than learn from us." Eleanor had no response to that. She drank the medicine in silence. As Eleanor's strength returned, Coda began teaching her to survive. It started with water. He led her to a small pool about half a mile from the canyon, a pool that looked just as clean and clear as the one that had nearly killed her. "Drink," he said. Eleanor stared at him. "Is this a test?" "Yes. You tell me safe or not safe." She looked at the water. It seemed identical to the poison pool. Clear, inviting. But now she knew to look deeper. The grass around the pool's edge was different, gray-green with a coarse texture she didn't recognize. And there, about 20 feet away, the bones of a small animal. "Salt grass," she said slowly. "And bones. It's poison." Coda nodded once. "Good. Now look there." He pointed to a depression further up the hillside where a cluster of willow trees grew. Willow and cottonwood only grow where water is clean. Where you see them, you can drink. Where you see salt grass, you walk away. Even if you're dying of thirst. Especially then, alkali water kills faster than no water at all. Over the following days, he taught her more. How to extract water from prickly pear cactus, slicing off the spines, chewing the flesh slowly to release the moisture without swallowing the fibrous pulp. How to follow Mustang tracks to clean water sources because wild horses had an unerring instinct for safe drinking spots. He taught her the stone trick, placing a small smooth pebble under the tongue to stimulate saliva production and reduce the sensation of thirst. When you are thirsty, he explained, you make bad decisions. You drink, first water you find. Stone helps you wait for good water. He taught her the last resort method that made Eleanor's stomach turn, extracting drinkable liquid from the stomach of a freshly killed animal. Inside, stomach of deer or buffalo water mixes with grass. Tastes terrible. Keeps you alive. Eleanor learned it all. She practiced identifying plants, tracking animals, reading the subtle signs of the landscape that could mean the difference between life and death. And as she learned, something shifted inside her. "You're not what I expected," she said one evening as they sat by the fire. Coda raised an eyebrow. "In New York, they told us stories about your people. Terrible stories. Torture, murder, savagery. Your people tell stories to make killing easier," Coda replied. "Harder to kill humans. Easier to kill monsters. Have you ever killed anyone?" "Yes." The word hung in the air. Eleanor waited. "In war, I kill soldiers who try to kill me. I kill to protect my family, my people." He met her eyes. "But I never kill woman. Never kill child. Never torture prisoner." A pause. "Can your soldiers say same thing?" Eleanor thought about the stories Jonathan had told her, edited versions she now realized. The successful campaigns and pacification efforts. She thought about what Coda had said about his wife and son. "No," she said quietly. "I don't think they can." They sat in silence for a long time. The fire crackled and popped. Outside the cave, the winter wind moaned through the canyon. "Your wife," Eleanor said finally. "What was her name?" Nahimana means mystic in my language. What was she like? Coda was quiet for so long that Eleanor thought he wouldn't answer. Then slowly he began to speak. He told her about Nahimana's laugh, how it sounded like water over stones. About her skill at beadwork, the intricate patterns she created that told stories of their ancestors. About her fierce protectiveness of their son and the gentle way she sang him to sleep. He told her about finding their bodies. Nahimana shot through the chest, their son dead beside her, still clutching her hand. Eleanor wept as she listened. Not from fear anymore, but from grief for him, for his family, for all the accumulated horror that lay between their peoples. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know it doesn't help. I know I can't fix anything, but I'm so sorry." Coda looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "You are first white person to say that to me." Winter deepened around them. Snow fell and melted. The days passed in a rhythm of survival, hunting, gathering, preparing food, maintaining the fire. They taught each other language. Eleanor learned Comanche words for water, fire, sky, earth. Coda improved his English, letting her correct his grammar and pronunciation. They shared stories. Eleanor told him about Brooklyn, about her father's bookbinding shop, about her mother who had died of consumption when Eleanor was 10. She told him about meeting Jonathan, about falling in love, about following him to the frontier. "I believed in what he was doing," she admitted. "I believed we were bringing civilization to the wilderness. I believed the stories about your people being savages who needed to be controlled. And now, I don't know what to believe. Everything I thought I knew was wrong." She looked at him across the fire. "You saved my life. You fed me, healed me, taught me to survive. By every definition of civilization I was raised with, you're more civilized than most people I knew in New York." "Maybe civilization is not right word," Coda said. "Maybe word should be humanity. My people have humanity. Your people have humanity too. But somewhere something broke. Your people forgot how to see humanity in others." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Can it be fixed? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not in my lifetime. Maybe not in yours." He stirred the fire. "But if people like you remember what you learned here, if you tell others, maybe someday." The sound of hoofbeats shattered the morning stillness. Eleanor was alone in the cave. Coda had gone hunting before dawn. She heard the horses approaching and felt her heart stop. Voices. English voices. "Spread out, check that canyon." She crept to the cave entrance and peered out. 6 men in blue uniforms were riding through the narrow gap in the rocks, a patrol probably searching for hostiles or survivors of the winter's disasters. Eleanor could call out. She could reveal herself. They would rescue her, take her back to civilization, to safety. She could go home, and Coda would be hunted down and killed. She pressed herself against the cave wall, heart pounding. The soldiers were spreading out, checking the willows along the stream, looking behind rocks. One of them was heading toward her cave. Eleanor made a decision. She grabbed a blanket and pressed herself into the deepest shadow of the cave, pulling the blanket over herself, making herself as small as possible. The soldier's shadow fell across the cave entrance. He peered inside, squinting into the darkness. "Nothing here," he called to the others. "Just an old cave." He moved on. Eleanor waited, barely breathing, until the sound of hoofbeats faded into the distance. Then she emerged into the sunlight, shaking. She had just hidden from rescue. She had just chosen an uncertain future in the wilderness over the safe return to her former life. Why? Because somewhere in the past weeks everything had changed. She could no longer be the person she had been, the obedient wife, the believer in manifest destiny, the woman who closed her eyes to inconvenient truths. And she could not repay Coda's mercy by betraying him to his enemies. Coda found her sitting by the stream when he returned. Soldiers came, she said without preamble. A patrol. They searched the canyon. He tensed, hand moving to his knife. I hid, she continued. They didn't find me. He stared at her. Why? Because they would have killed you. You could have gone home, back to your people. They stopped being my people the moment I understood what they really are. She met his eyes. You're more my people now than they ever were. Coda stood motionless for a long time, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he sat down beside her. You are a strange woman, Eleanor Mercer. I know. My people would say you have two spirits, one born white, one born Comanche. War between them, but Comanche spirit winning. Eleanor smiled faintly. Maybe, or maybe I'm just finally seeing clearly for the first time. They sat in silence, watching the water flow. Then Coda did something he had never done before. He reached out and took her hand. Eleanor didn't pull away. They spoke of love only once. It was deep winter, the coldest night yet. They huddled together for warmth beside a fire that struggled against the bitter cold. Have you ever loved anyone? Eleanor asked. Besides your wife? No, Coda replied. Nahimana was only one. After she died, I thought I would never feel again. And now he was quiet for a long time. Now I feel something. For you. I don't know what to call it. Eleanor's heart was pounding. I feel it too. It cannot be, he said. Your people and my people, we are enemies. Even if war ends, we can never be together. Your world would not allow it. I know. Then why do we speak of this? Because some things need to be said. Even if they can't change anything. She squeezed his hand. I love you, Coda. I don't know when it happened. I don't know how. But I do. He turned to look at her, really look, his dark eyes meeting her green ones in the firelight. I love you also, he said. From the day I found you in Dead Horse, maybe. I don't know. But it is true. They sat together through the night, holding hands, not speaking. There was nothing more to say. They both knew this could not last, that the world outside their hidden canyon would never permit their love to flourish, but for one night none of that mattered. Spring came early that year. The snow melted. Green shoots pushed through the brown grass. Birds returned to the canyon, filling the air with song. And with spring came the inevitable. Coda returned from a scouting trip with grim news. Soldiers everywhere. They are sweeping west looking for holdouts. Soon they will find this canyon. Eleanor felt her stomach drop. What do we do? You must go back. No, Eleanor. He took her hands. I cannot protect you from an army. If they find you here with me, they will kill me and call you a prisoner. Your reputation will be destroyed. Your life will be over. I don't care about my reputation, but I care about your life. He touched her face gently. You have survived too much to die now. You must live. You must go back to your world and make something of what you have learned. What about you? I will go north. Find what remains of my people. Try to help them survive. His jaw tightened. It will not be the life I wanted, but it is the life I have. Eleanor was crying now. I can't lose you. Not after everything. You don't lose me. He pressed his palm against her heart. I am here. Always. And you are here. He touched his own chest. Love doesn't need bodies in same place. Love just is. The goodbye was brief. Anything longer would have been unbearable. Coda gave her his mother's necklace, a string of eagle bones carved with symbols she didn't understand. When you see eagle fly, think of me. Eleanor gave him the only thing she had, her wedding ring from Jonathan. Sell it if you need to. Use it to help your people. He shook his head. I keep it, to remember that enemies can become family. One last embrace. One last look. Then Eleanor walked east toward a patrol she could see in the distance, while Coda rode north toward an uncertain future. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Eleanor Mercer returned to civilization in April of 1875. The story she told was carefully edited. She had survived the wagon massacre and the Blue Norther by hiding in a horse carcass. She had wandered the wilderness for months, slowly recovering, surviving on plants and small animals until she found her way to rescue. No one asked how a city woman from Brooklyn learned to survive in the Texas wilderness. No one questioned how she recovered from alkali poisoning without medical care. They were too busy celebrating her miraculous survival. She was a sensation. Newspapers from Texas to New York carried her story. She was invited to speak at ladies' societies and church gatherings where audiences gasped at her tales of frontier hardship. But she never told them the truth. Not the whole truth. She never mentioned Coda. The years passed. Eleanor settled in Austin, Texas, close enough to the frontier to feel connected to the land that had transformed her far enough from her former life in New York to start fresh. She never remarried. Many men proposed the widow of a cavalry hero was a desirable match, but she refused them all. "My heart belongs to another," she would say, and everyone assumed she meant Jonathan. She let them assume. Instead of remarriage, she turned to writing. Her first articles were gentle descriptions of frontier life, observations about the natural beauty of Texas. They were published in local newspapers, praised for their vivid detail. But gradually her writing grew sharper. She began to address uncomfortable subjects, the treatment of native peoples, the broken treaties, the systematic destruction of their way of life. She was not alone. In 1881, a book appeared that changed everything. A Century of Dishonor by Helen Hunt Jackson. Eleanor read it in a single night, tears streaming down her face. Here finally was someone speaking the truth that she had learned in that hidden canyon, the truth about her country's crimes against its original inhabitants. She wrote to Helen Hunt Jackson. A correspondence began. Eleanor shared her experiences, though still without mentioning Coda by name. Helen encouraged her to write more boldly, to add her voice to the growing chorus demanding justice. In 1886, Eleanor published her most controversial piece in the Austin Daily Statesman. "I was once married to a soldier who fought in the Red River War. I believed we were bringing civilization to the wilderness. Then I nearly died in that same wilderness, and I was saved not by a soldier, not by a doctor, but by someone we would call a savage. He healed me with medicine made from tree bark and wild berries. He taught me to read the land, to survive where our soldiers died by the dozens. If that is savagery, then savagery is wiser than we knew. And if what we did to his people is civilization, then I want no part of it." The backlash was fierce. She was called a race traitor, an Indian lover. She received threatening letters. Former friends refused to acknowledge her. She kept writing. In October 1890, someone knocked on her door. Eleanor was 52 now, her hair gone gray. She opened the door and stopped breathing. He was older. His hair was white, his face deeply weathered. He wore the clothes of a white man, worn shirt, faded trousers, a battered hat. But his eyes were the same. "Coda," she whispered. "I can read now," he said. "You taught me. I read your words in the reservation newspaper. You came all this way because of my articles. I came because you told the truth, and because I never stopped loving you." She pulled him inside. Then she did what she had dreamed of doing for 16 years. She held him, and they wept together for all the years they had lost. They had 12 years together. They couldn't marry Texas. Law forbade it. They couldn't live openly. Society would have destroyed them. So they existed in the margins in the small house on the edge of Austin where no one looked too closely. Coda told her about the reservation years, the despair, the children taken to boarding schools and forbidden to speak their own language. Eleanor held his hand and listened. There was no comfort for such things. She continued writing her later articles, informed by Coda's first-hand accounts. Her words didn't change government policy, but somewhere people read and thought differently. Somewhere seeds of change took root. Coda died in spring 1902, aged 63. He passed in his sleep, his head on Eleanor's shoulder peacefully, as if he had simply decided he had stayed long enough. She buried him in an unmarked grave, speaking Comanche words as best she could remember. The eagle bone necklace went with him. Eleanor lived 3 more years. When she died in 1905, she left behind a small box, a round gray pebble, dried mesquite bark, and an unfinished manuscript, the true story of the Comanche warrior who had saved her life. In 2009, Congress issued a formal apology to Native Americans for the many instances of violence, maltreatment, and neglect. It came 128 years too late. But it came. History books call the Red River War a successful military campaign. They don't mention the 1,000 horses screaming at Palo Duro Canyon. They don't mention the women and children who starved. They don't mention the treaties broken, the promises betrayed. But some stories survive outside history books. They pass from person to person, whispered, when truth seems more important than comfort. This is one of those stories. A story about poison water and healing bark. About a blue norther that killed without mercy, and a man who showed mercy anyway. About two people who should have been enemies and became something more. History is written by the victors, but love is written by those who refuse to surrender. And some loves can never be erased.